We live in a world that is just obsessed with measurement. But what if the most important things in life, the things that really matter, simply can't be counted? We're going to dive into a really powerful idea that challenges our deepest instinct to put a number on everything.
It's a huge question, isn't it? I mean, we've got all these systems and metrics, all these numbers we chase every single day, and we use them to define value, to define success, even to define our own self-worth.
You see it all the time. In our social lives, influence gets boiled down to just one number: followers.
Then in our professional lives, success so often is measured in dollars.
And even in our day-to-day, we're looking for these little digital pats on the back, right? These likes, these tiny numbers that tell us, hey, you've been seen, you've been approved of.
Now look, this impulse to count and calculate, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's a very human way to try and make sense of the world. But it definitely has its limits. It might actually be stopping us from appreciating things that exist on a scale that is just, well, it's far beyond what we can comprehend.
There's actually an ancient story that teaches a really powerful lesson on this very idea. It's all about a test that shows us the true limits of our human scale.
So imagine this. Imagine being asked to do something that you know right from the very start is completely and utterly impossible. Well, that's exactly where this story begins.
So he's taken outside, under this vast, incredible night sky, and he's given this command: count them, count the stars. I mean, what an absurd task, right? No one could ever hope to finish it. It feels like a setup for failure. Or is it?
And this is where the whole story just pivots. What if the entire point of this impossible task had absolutely nothing to do with getting the right number? What if the test was about something else entirely?
This brings us to the core insight, the real aha moment. See, the true meaning wasn't in the counting. It was in the realization that he couldn't count. The real lesson was in the futility of the attempt itself.
And this just totally reframes the whole idea of futility. We usually think of it as failure, right? But here, it's presented as more of a doorway. That moment where our limited human way of understanding things just has to give way to something infinitely larger.
This is the key. Abraham wasn't meant to come back with a number. He was meant to stand there, completely overwhelmed by the sheer scale of the sky, and understand that the promise being made to him was just as vast, just as immeasurable as all those stars.
So, the crucial point here is that success wasn't about completing the task. No way. Success was about a shift in perspective. It was about grasping the magnitude of the promise, not trying to calculate its exact dimensions.
And this powerful analogy of the stars, it connects directly to how we might think about blessings in our own lives. Those profound, positive things that are often just impossible to quantify.
The connection here is so clear. Some blessings are, by their very nature, just bigger than our ability to wrap our minds around them. Trying to count them is literally like trying to count the stars in the sky.
You know how our minds work. They want to analyze, to categorize, to count. It's just what they do. But this perspective suggests that for the truly vast things in life, we need a different tool. We need a different way of receiving them.
So if calculation and measurement just fall short, then what's the alternative? Well, the source proposes an approach that's centered not on grasping, but on receiving. And this comparison, it just illustrates the two paths so brilliantly. On one hand, you have the mind's way, which is constantly trying to put things in a box, to measure them, to fully understand them. And on the other, you have the way of faith, which is a way of being that just receives the gift, that accepts it and trusts in its vastness without needing to measure every little corner.
And there it is. That's the central argument laid bare. The right response to an immeasurable gift isn't a calculator, it's an open heart. It's a shift from doing all this mental accounting to just simple, trusting acceptance.
And that word, vast, it brings us right back to that night sky, doesn't it? It just creates this sense of awe, of wonder, of something so huge and beautiful that our only real response is to just stand back and take it all in.
So I'll leave you with this question to think about. In a world that's constantly telling us to measure everything, our success, our influence, our happiness, what might we discover if we just stopped? What if we just looked up and appreciated the vastness without ever trying to count the stars?